So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the introduction to the machining technician ST1305. My name is Robert Stott. I'm the industry and portfolio manager here at EAL. So just a few things to bear in mind as we do move through the presentation. All attendees will be set to mute and videos will be disabled. That's just to ensure consistency across the different speakers this afternoon. Please do send your questions, any questions that you do have, into the chat. We will have a Q&A session following on from the presentation, so we will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. So please do send those in as you have the questions. And resources, so the slides, the recording, and any frequently asked questions will be shared with you on the conclusion of this presentation. So hopefully by close of play today or tomorrow, by tomorrow lunchtime, we will send out those resources for the webinars. So let's just have a look who's speaking this afternoon. So as you'll see on the screen as well, we have myself. I've introduced myself already, industry manager. We're also joined by Cameron Holt, who is the product specialist. And Cameron's been working really closely on the on-program qualification. We're also joined by my colleague Jason Daniels, who's a regional development manager as well, who will be speaking towards the end of the presentation. So let's just have a look at the agenda this afternoon. So we're going to be looking at an introduction into the new machining standard, looking at what the current standard is, but also drawing some comparisons to the old standard as well. Cameron's going to be looking at the mandated qualification, so looking at units and pathways within that qualification. Supporting documentation, we have got a digital learning resources offer, which we've currently just started, so we'll be talking through that as we do move through the slides. Gateway, actually looking at what gateway means, and the EPA assessment method. So for this particular standard, we'll be looking at information for centres to deliver this new standard. So if you're an existing centre with us at EAL, if you're a brand new centre to us, or you're just looking at endpoint assessment, we can talk, Jason will talk you through that at the end of the presentation, how you can get involved with us in these on-program qualification and this endpoint assessment. And as mentioned already, there will be time at the end for any question and answers that you do have. So please do put those in the chat if we don't cover them. So let's just have a look at the current standard, but let's draw attention to the existing standard as well, so hopefully you can understand that in a bit more detail. So the new standard is machining technician, ST1305. Delivery was approved in November last year, 2022, and typical duration to gateway is 42 months. Typical endpoint assessment period is 3 months, and funding for this particular standard is 27K. Some particular job roles could be manual or CNC machinist, and overall it was graded overall fail, pass, merit or distinction. On-program qualifications, so we're going to be looking at our EAL qualification, which is the level 3 extended diploma in machining, which is development knowledge, and that's part of the on-program qualification requirements. And also learners should have achieved maths and English at level 2 before entering gateway. So it's important to understand that before entering gateway. Let's just look at the engineering technician, which had machining standard built into that. So that was ST1305, which most of you should be familiar with. It did expire in February 2023. And again, typical duration to gateway is 42 months and EPA period at 3 months. That's the old standard. Looking at the funding, 26K. And again, typical job roles could be that manual and CNC. Just looking at some key changes, really, and again, we will focus on some of these as we do move through the slides. You'll be aware 4 mandated qualifications. So we have the AME knowledge and competency at level 2, and also requirement for the AME knowledge and competency at level 3. So 4 qualifications mandated in the previous standard. Some EPA changes as well. If you look at the previous one, it was a portfolio. This is for EPA, portfolio of evidence. and the competency validation interview, which is known as a VIVA, which was carried out by an independent assessment of competency by a professional engineering institute, commonly known as a PEI. So that was the old one. That's no longer a requirement. Common knowledge and skills across engineering technician. There was some specific for machinists, but now they are all, obviously it's been broken away into its own standard, and knowledge, skills, behaviours are all relevant to the machinist now. Professional recognition is aligned, but no longer mandated. Again, drawing on that EPA changes there in terms of that one there. Just looking at some of the support qualifications, drawing back on the previous slide, the old machining standard was 4 qualifications. The new one's now just 1 qualification. But we've had a lot of inquiries from existing centres and employers to say whether the old qualifications are still available. Yes, they are, absolutely, and they will certainly support the new machinist standard. However, they are not mandated. So they are the level 2 diploma in foundation competency and the level 2 diploma in machining knowledge, and then the level 3 development competency. So those qualifications are certainly still available should you wish to use them to support your learners on machining, but they're not mandated. But yes, absolutely still available. So at this point, I'm going to pass across to my colleague Cameron, who's going to go through the new qualification or on-programme qualification for this standard.
Many thanks, Rob. Good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, this qualification opened for registrations back in October last year. The materials are all available to download through online services for those that have added this qualification to their centre remits already. The credit value is stated there at between 111 and 130, and the notional guided learn hours are 840. Obviously, they are notional, and centres are expected to use their judgment around the guided learners hours that they allocate to this programme. Typically, you're looking at 3 years day release. That's what you'd be looking at for this programme. The minimum for a mandated qualification within this standard is 720, and again, that's comparable with 3 years on day release. So it consists of 4 mandated level 3 units, and then there's the level 2 skills units, mandated level 2 skills of either 1 unit, which is unit 48, or a combination of at least 2 other units, which I will talk through on the following slides. The level 2 skills units must be completed before the learner undertakes the level 3 optional machining skills per units for fairly obvious reasons. We've then got 3 optional level 3 machining skill specific units, and we'll look at them. 2 optional level 3 supportive general units, and then 1 at level 3 and what we've termed enhancing technologies or sustainability units. Could you move on to the next slide, please, Rob? So just to cover off, for those that have already got the previous qualifications from the engineering technician standard already on the remit, which was the level 3 diploma in machining, the level 2, what's known as foundation competence qualification, development knowledge. So if you've for the or the development knowledge for the advanced manufacturing engineer, if you've got them 3 qualifications on your remit, then it's really straightforward. So you'd complete a qualification approval application, which you would if you didn't deliver them qualifications, but you've got to make sure that you've got the necessary resources to deliver this extended diploma. And because this extended diploma incorporates units from the previous diploma in machining, the foundation competency, and the advanced manufacturer engineering development knowledge qualification, then you'd need to go through that process. As I say, it's straightforward, and it's a qualification approval application through Smarter Touch, and that's obviously subject to there being no existing issues or concerns with that. So if you can move to the next slide, please, Rob. Just to cover broadly the assessment strategy and the staffing requirements, this qualification combines the requirements that were applicable to the level 3 diploma in machining that we've just spoken about and was in the previous standard, or the engineering technician standard as we know it, and the diploma in advanced manufacturing engineering, the foundation competency at level 2. So this qualification includes both of those requirements because it's got the level 3 and level 2 skills units within it. If you can move to the next slide, Rob. So just going over that in a little bit more detail, the level 3 knowledge, staffing requirements aligned to what's typically expected of a technical certificate VRQ, which would be 2 years experience of teaching or working towards a teaching training qualification, or a qualification such as a certificate in education. So that's the requirements for delivery of the level 3 knowledge units. The level 2 skills units requirements are those that you'd expect from if you were assessing another engineering competency-based qualification, which is typically the assessing competence within a work environment, the same as PAO was previously, performing engineering operations, and the same as the foundation competency. And that's really because the units derive from they're not derived from NOS anymore, like the performing engineering operations were, but they do derive from what's called the employer units of competency, which is what the foundation competency is derived from. So, so that's the reason for the staffing requirements. Expectation is that there's a minimum of 2 different examples of performance of the unit required. So that's the same as the foundation competency. They are identical units to those units that are within that qualification. And then there's just to bring your attention to within the qualification manual, and it's got some more details, but it talks around the requirement for a sheltered environment. And that's the expectation that this phase and these units, these level 2 units, would be delivered within that sheltered environment. Obviously, you can refer to the qualification manual for more information. You can consult with your external quality assurers for guidance. If you can go to the next slide, please, Rob. So, yeah, level 3 knowledge units are pass, merit, distinction grading. And just as a reminder for anyone who's already delivered our technical certificates, there's a requirement for moderation to be completed for the knowledge and the practical assessment. So to make sure that the marks have been awarded accurately. And that's subject to external scrutiny by our EQA team. The level 2 skills units is, as you'd expect, pass and refer, effectively being competent or not yet competent. Next slide, please, Rob. And then we get to the rule of combination. And what you should recognise is that if you've been delivering the diploma in machining previously and the advanced manufacturing engineering level 3 development knowledge qualification, then you should recognise these units, because these units are within those qualifications. So engineering communications, properties and applications of engineering materials, and engineering mathematics are all within both of those qualifications. And then what we've done is we've given an option. So when you look to register learners onto this qualification, you've got 2 pathways on the online services, A and B, and you've got options there of the health and safety unit. So either the existing unit from the diploma in machining, which has got the external assessment, the engineering, environmental, health and safety unit, or you've got the option to deliver the health and safety in an engineering workplace, which hasn't got the external assessment. And that's the unit that's within the AME, the Advanced Manufacturing Engineering Development Knowledge qualification. So you've got 4 mandatory units. Just to make that clear, there's 4 mandatories, there's 3 plus 1, either one of the health and safety. And then you've got mandated level 2 skills units. There's a choice of either unit 048, which is general machining, fitting and assembly applications, but EAL, we've taken the approach with the agreement of the working group that in place of Unit 48, which isn't, in my experience, often selected within a foundation competency qualification, instead you can do a combination of two other units listed. So you can see those there, the fitting, hand fitting, mechanical assemblies, using lathe, using a milling machine, or there is another unit which is turning, milling and welding applications, and then there's grinding. So it just gives providers and employers some flexibility in the unit. So if you've already got existing programs and you wish to continue with them existing programs, such as delivering of the foundation competency, or as we'll see later with when we talk about RPL, if you deliver the diploma in engineering operations, which also contain these foundation competency units, then it may be that you decide that you can continue with your existing foundation program and use those units from that program towards this new extended diploma in machining. If you can move to the next slide, please, Rob. Then we've got the machining specific units, so grouped together because they're all machining units. So unit for CNC, you've got grinding, gear cutting as an option, advanced milling, advanced turning, specialist machining, and then another CNC unit. And you're looking for at least 3 units to be selected from that group. Next slide, please, Rob. And then what you've got is supportive units, and you're looking to select 2 units from those, which is the CAD. There's an advanced manufacturing techniques, which is these units you'll be familiar with as coming from the existing diploma in machining. So all the way down to unit 18, which is in the existing level 3 diploma in machining. But then what we've got is we've added from the AME qualification to give some more flexibility is a unit of drawing, mechanical measurement and inspection techniques, and then tool making, press work. So more options than what's in the existing diploma and level 3 machining is what we've got in this extended version. Next slide, please, Rob. And then for the last group, we've got the enhancing technology sustainability. At least one unit is required from this group, and currently we've got robot technology, workplace improvement, and additive manufacture. In development and planned for completion prior to December this year is units of industry covering Industry 4.0, and simulation and digital twinning will be the minimum that we'll be adding, and we will be considering adding other units if we feel that they're applicable to this standard, the machining standard that it relates, and there's demand from employers and providers. If you could move to the next slide, please, Rob. And this, I think, is the final slide. It just highlights that we've got a very comprehensive RPL document on through the online services and on Smarter Touch, and it gives guidance related to existing qualifications, other qualifications that we've got at the level 2 and level 3, where they directly map to this level 3 extended diploma in machining. So you can look through this document and find the units that map and have got the same off-qual code. And I think that's the last slide, Rob. So many thanks.
Thanks, Cameron. So very much still focusing on the on-programme qualification. We are just started development of our digital learning resources, or DLR package, which will very much support you as centres, your tutors, assessors in delivering this knowledge qualification. What we are developing will be a series of units, 20 units in total, which will cover some of the knowledge units or the knowledge units and some of the optional units. So as you can see on screen here, this is from the mandated knowledge units, and we will be creating as part of that package a series of PowerPoint presentations, learner worksheets, learner handouts, sample questions and schemes of work, and that'll all be relevant to each unit, which will be referenced against obviously the learning outcomes of those particular units themselves. Just looking at the DLR that we're going to be producing, DLR for the units in terms of the optionals. So as you can see there, we've got 16 different optional units, and those are I suppose, the most popular units which were selected from the old machining standard, and the ones that are most relevant, which we feel that you will be using as centres in putting your learners through. So as you can see there, a range of units which will be covering the knowledge element. So again, looking at PowerPoint presentations, learner worksheets, handouts, sample questions, and schemes of work for each of those units. So all in all, 20 units will be developed, which will have DLR attached to them. All the units will be free of charge. When we say the digital learning resources units will all be free of charge. And because there's quite a lot of work involved in developing this DLR for these units, we will be taking a phased approach for releasing learner resources. So it's probably going to be over a 12-month period. We will be focusing on the mandated units first of all, and then we will be filtering through to the optional units. But once they are available, they will be uploaded to the EAL website or the EAL approval portal. So, but again, all free of charge. But just bear with us on this. We're very much at the start of that journey, but these are the units which we will be developing for. So just going to focus really now on Gateway and EPA for the next few slides. So just looking at what Gateway is. Gateway is very much the point where all training and any mandated qualifications have been completed. This is at the point where the apprentice, the employer, the provider say that a learner or an apprentice is competent. This is the point. So any qualifications or any necessary documentation would be uploaded to the EPA portal, and it's really at this point the EPA starts. This is very much the end of the journey for the learner in terms of training. So just to summarise, all training must be completed before a learner can go through Gateway. Very much employer, provider, apprentice confirm that the apprentice is competent and has met all the knowledge, skills and behaviours. Any off-the-job requirements have been met, and the typical duration in the machining is 42 months. However, the minimum has to be 12 months. And again, quite a nice infographic there in terms of who's responsible for what at the bottom there. So initial assessment, very much before the apprentice starts the apprenticeship, and then very much that on-program training where any mandated qualifications will be done, off-the-job training and all the learner development. Then we move into Gateway, and then very much endpoint assessment is a final module there. So really, let's just have a look in terms of the EAL EPA stages. So getting set up with an EPAO, and I suppose the most important thing to take away from this webinar is we are currently the only EPAO in the machining standard. And Jason will be talking through a little bit more in terms of how you can set up with us to deliver this EPA. When you move to the welcome, so you'll be welcomed. You'll receive a welcome email. You'll be sent logins in terms of the EPA system. You'll be sent any handbooks, any digital content. Once you begin to register learners, that's when you will be sent the specific assessment guides for that or this particular standard. If you think about from welcome to Gateway, there could be a significant amount of time there. So that's where we very much keep in touch. So that can be via industry managers such as myself. It can be via the development managers. It could be delivered by the technical advisors, business managers, or customer service. So lots of touch points in terms of that welcome to Gateway, where we will touch base with you several times. Gateway, we've just been through actually what Gateway is, and that's very much the point where you will upload any certificates for any on-program qualifications, portfolio of evidence, etc. will be uploaded at Gateway. Once you've uploaded at Gateway, we as the EPAO will check the documentation, check that you've got everything in that you need for Gateway, and then you'll get a confirmation of EPA activity. Okay, so that's where location, date, etc., time will be confirmed to you at that point there. And then it will be EPA assessment. So it has to be a minimum of 2 weeks before you get confirmation up until the assessment, EPA assessment there. And then the assessment is very much on the day. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to take place on that particular day. Following on from EPA, then there will be an EPA results and there will be feedback after that. So quite simply set out in terms of those touch points there, in terms of the EPA start to end journey for the learner. Let's just have a look how machining is assessed at EPA, because there is some significant changes when you compare it to engineering technician. So we have 3 different assessment modules. So practical demonstration, that is graded as fail or pass. We have the interview underpinned by a portfolio of evidence, that's graded as fail, pass, distinction. And then we have the knowledge test, which again is graded as pass, fail, distinction. The overall apprenticeship is also graded as well. If a learner was to fail one of these components, then there is an opportunity for a learner to either resit or retake. And let's just talk about what that actually means. So if someone is resitting, that's where they failed a module and it's deemed that the learner should have some supportive action in place before they can redo that particular module. So typical time frames, you're looking about 2 months, it's saying there, for that resit. Now, if a learner fails a component and it's deemed that there needs to be some significant training that has to take place before they can resit that component, then that would be a retake, and then typical duration would be 4 months for that. So 2 options there really in terms of resit and retake, and we have got more guidance on that, and there's more guidance in the assessment plan on that. It's just worth pointing out though as well, if a learner does fail a component and they don't either resit or retake within a 6-month duration has passed, then they will have to redo the whole endpoint assessment for all those 3 modules. So again, that's just something to bear in mind. At the end of the apprenticeship and having passed EPA, learners will be awarded the apprenticeship certificate by IFATE. So we'll just have a little bit more of a closer look. Again, this is just a briefing. We're not drilling down too much on EPA. There will be further sessions on EPA moving forward, but just to give you a holistic overview of what the requirement is. And in terms of evidence requirements, so let's look at the portfolio of evidence. So there's 8 discrete pieces of evidence required, and evidence should be fully mapped against knowledge, skills, and behaviour of this standard. Evidence can be used more than once to support a KSB, and the statement can come from the employer confirming validity of evidence. Examples and evidence should include, but not limited to, the following. So documentation, records, workplace policies, procedures, witness statements, annotated photographs and videos. Other evidence can be used. And again, an important thing to bear in mind as well is the EPAO will not assess the portfolio of evidence directly. This will be used to underpin by the interview. Assessors will review and prepare questions for the interview. So an important thing there to bear in mind. The interview will be 60 minutes in duration and will cover 10 questions. And again, these are the categories in which those 10 questions will be drawn from. It's communication, quality assurance, fault finding and taking action, ranging stock and supplies, contributing to continuous improvement. Just looking at what the knowledge test consists of, the knowledge test will be 30 questions, which will be multiple choice. So it'll be a multiple choice question. Each question will have 4 possible answers. Obviously, there will be 1 correct answer. 1 mark per question. Learners must achieve 21 or 70% to achieve a pass. and 26 or 86% to achieve a distinction. And again, these are all from the assessment plan. This is what's been agreed by the Trailblazer group. The apprentice will be given at least 2 weeks notice. Again, drawing back to them last couple of slides when we went through those stages. 2 weeks notice must be given to the apprentice before completing the knowledge test. And the knowledge test will assess, again, K1, K2, K3, K5, 7 and 8, 17, 20, and S9. So we will draw questions from those knowledge and that skill statement there. Just looking at really the practical demonstration. So the practical demonstration will consist of a task or tasks set by the EPAO. The apprentices will get a minimum of 2 weeks of the practical demonstration, and the delivery will be one-to-one. So the endpoint assessor will be a one-to-one delivery. Total duration will be 4.5 hours and will include oral testing. And then the practical demonstration will be to produce complex components combining a minimum of 3 different operations that are selected and 3 different features using one type of machine. The assessor will also ask oral questions during this practical demonstration, which will cover work environment, tools and equipment, planning, machine preparation, and manufacturing complex components and features. Again, as we do move forward a bit closer to EPA, then we will be doing more briefings on the actual EPA itself. This is just very much a briefing session in terms of what's involved in the assessments. So at this point, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Jason, who's going to cover how you can work with us as an existing sensor or a new sensor of EPA itself. So over to you, Jason.
Thanks, Rob. Good afternoon, everybody. So I just want to run through some hints and tips for you as a sensor support. So the first thing you need to do, if you haven't done so far, is make sure you've got this new qualification on your remit. As Cameron alluded to earlier in his part of the presentation, it's a simple form of approval form on our online services, which you fill in. It pings up to our your EQA. They will then give you the authorization to add it to your remit. So make sure that you've done that first. The second one is make sure that you've also planned in your IQA strategy for this new qualification. It's going to be a new qualification in your remit, so it's going to come under EQA scrutiny from ourselves. So make sure you've built that planning, you've done your interim sampling on there, and you've planned it in to do your standardization with it. The next one as well, make sure that you've also arrange this with your EQA. So you won't have direct claims for this qualification. You will be able to register on it when you've got it added to your remit, but make sure that you've planned it in with your EQA visit. So if you've delivered a unit or you're halfway through a unit, when your EQA comes in, make sure you've added it to the plan. So you can add it to your visit plan. So your EQA is actually sampling it as you're going along and delivering it. Because what you don't want to have is a situation where you haven't got direct claims, you've completed everything, and it's going to hold you back from gateway. So just make sure that you've thought about these things, you've got your EQA visit, you've put it into your sample plan, so nothing's going to stop you from going through to endpoint assessment, clearing your gateway, and also achieving your timely and completions. The second one, which is really important, is make sure that you've got your EPA contract proposal in place with us. This can be done by engaging with your regional development managers. So we've got Paul Kerwin here who looks after the North. So he looks after all the training providers, the colleges and the universities. We've got Alan McDonald who looks after East Anglia, London. And again, he looks after training providers, colleges and the universities. And there's myself who looks after the Midlands, Wales and the South West. So make sure you've got the calls in the calendar, you've engaged with us. So basically what we'd need for a proposal is make sure how many you've got for your cohort. So it could be a cohort of 10 and when your completion dates are going to be. So we've got sight of what's coming down the pipeline. So with that in mind, we know that a proposal, and it's why we refer it to as a proposal, is we know that completion dates can change. Some learners will be moving more quickly through the program and might have a need before their endpoint assessment date, or we have learners who go past endpoint assessment dates. But again, we will be led by you. So there is flexibility within the proposals. And we also know that learners can fall off program as well. So if a cohort of 10 changes into a cohort of 8, we can just update the proposal for you. But you do need that in place so we can see what we've got coming down the pipeline, so we can service your need, and you need it from your contracting with the funding from the ESFA. So you have to identify us as the EPAO, and as Rob said earlier, we're the only one on the register at this moment in time. So make sure that's in place for your regional development manager. Also, if there's anybody on the call today who would like to become an EAL centre, who's not an EAL centre with us, again, it's a straightforward process. Engage with your local regional development manager. We'll be more than happy to help you become a centre. It's a very straightforward process. On top of that, when you've got your proposals in place with us and you've engaged with us, it's all signed up to, you'll have the EPA support. So you'll have our platform. So some of you have already got it out there, which is our prepared platform where you can upload your learners. I'll notice one of the questions in the Q&A already. You can put your learners on straight away. What I would discourage you from doing is paying the registration fee, which is £150, which is basically registering yourself up onto that endpoint assessment. So what I mean by uploading them on the system is when you've got access to the prepared system, put the learner on there. If there's any mandatory qualifications they have already got, so your English, your maths, you could upload those qualifications on there, so it gives you a head start, and then that would then link your EPA packs to that learner when you've got all that in place. On top of that as well, you'll have the support from an EPA colleague who will be designated to you as a centre. So they will look after you as a centre. They'll consider proposals in place when your end date are coming up for your need, and they will be coming back towards you. You've got so many learners coming up, how we're looking, and this is where the communication between the two of us happens. On top of what Rob said as well, we engage with our centres as well as regional development managers to make sure how we're doing. Are you on course for that? Offer any support, make sure you got your EPA documents, make sure that you understand everything. And then if there's support, extra support, what we need, we can pull in Cameron from a qualification side, or we can pull in Rob as well for his experience. I'll put some really useful links in here for you, which we'll share within the chat today. So the first one is actually the qualification. It gives this link here takes you straight to our EAL webpage, where it gives you an overview of what Cameron's been talking about, the qualification. It's an overview of the qualification, what's expected, and it gives you a briefing of it. Down in the left-hand corner on this link is where the qualification manual is, where Cameron's been talking about all those combinations of units, what you need to make up the qualification. So it's in the left-hand corner of that link for the first link. What I've also done is actually put the direct link, the second one down, to the qualification manual. So when you can have a look through this to see what units you want to run when you're doing your delivery program. So have a look at that for you as well. The last link in there as well is the actual apprenticeship standard link. Make sure that you've gone on there, you've looked at the duties, you've looked at all the KSBs, you've looked at the pathways within that standard. There has been another change on that web page where you used to have the assessment plan on the right-hand side. The assessment plan is there, but it's up on the toolbar at the top at the right-hand side. So you can click on the assessment plan, download that, and have a read through it. There's nothing there been hidden from anybody. It's all there for everybody to see. So that you can start having a read through that to support you through for endpoint assessment. So just recap on everything. From a centre perspective, make sure you've got the new qualification on your remit, you've filled it in. Make sure that you've put your IQA plan in place so that you're sampling your units. Make sure that you've also got your EQA visits in lined with your delivery. So, and remember, you can control that. When you've got a visit, you can just ask your EQA, can you add this unit to our sampling? So they're sampling it because you want to get direct claims to this qualification. Make sure you've engaged with the regional development managers. You've got your proposals in place. So it's all there. It's all watertight for you, basically. Have a look at those links. Go on there, download the qualification manual, and also have a look at the assessment plan on the IFA website. My contact details are on there. If anybody after this wants to contact me, any questions, we'll try and answer all the questions what we can. And we are going to do a follow-up on the endpoint assessment at some point. I'll pass you back to Rob now. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. So yeah, we'll just have a look at the questions. Quite a lot around EPA, drilling down into the detail. Again, you know, we will do some more follow-up sessions actually on the EPA. We could probably talk all day on EPA. So that they will be sessions which we will be scheduling moving forward. This is very much just a briefing. So questions around DLR, will this be chargeable? So no, it won't be chargeable. It'll be completely free of charge. Again, we will be taking a phased approach very much at the start of that journey. We want to support you as centres. We want to support your tutors in delivering this new qualification. So we'll be producing resources to support your tutors delivering this. We will be working on the mandated qualifications first of all, but just bear with us in this process. No, we are at the start of that journey. But no, they will be free of charge. Just looking. Cameron, maybe a question for you. Are there any bad combinations of the level 2 skill units? I think you did cover this, did you not?
Yeah. Is it possible to scroll back in the presentation, Rob, just to the list of level 2 skills units, because it's really worth pointing this out. In the qualification manual, there's some further detail. So because I think you've gone. Have you gone? Yeah, for the next couple of stats. That's it. That'll be fine, Rob. I think. Yeah. So in the qualification manual, it does identify certain combination of units where they are barred and can't be taken together. So where you're taking pathway A and it's just taking unit 40A, obviously there's no barred combinations because it's only that level 2 skills units. But what it says in the qualification manual is that the barred unit combinations are set on the premise that the learner should not be able to achieve the mandatory level 2 skills without having undertaken at least one machining process. That means, for example, that they can't take 005 and 012 because there's no machining process within them 2 units. So it must be a combination of units that have a machining process. Likewise with unit 19, there's a barred combination that you can't then take because you've already covered general turning, milling and welding applications. You can't take unit 19 with using lathes or using milling machines. So they're the 2 barred combinations. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Cameron. Just looking through, maybe Jason, how long I think you have covered this. How long before Gateway do apprentices need to register on the portal?
So basically, you can put your apprentices on the portal. So what I mean by that, put them up on there, but don't register them with us. So when you're coming close to endpoint assessment, I would recommend about 6 months before, get them registered up, pay your £150 deposit as your registration fee, if that helps. I've also seen about qualifications, the questions around let me just double check this. The evidence for the portfolio. So basically the evidence, the 8 pieces of evidence around the portfolio will be around their pathway. So if they're turning, so you'd want the evidence around to hit the KSBs. So you will have an associated KSBs for the turning pathway. So there'll be something in there what they'll have to cover. So this is where the evidence will be generated to put forward for that portfolio. Remember, the portfolio is not assessed, as Rob said earlier in his slide. It's you who's to gain the questions, those 10 questions around the professional interview. So what will happen is there'll be nothing there to catch the apprentices out. They will look at the evidence, and independent assessors, he or she will look at that evidence, and they will generate the questions around that evidence, what's been put in front of them. So that will be the questions around it. So it's basically, they'll be asking around the key points of the KSBs.
Thanks, Jason. If there's no further questions,
there was a question I could cover, Rob, was that I've answered on the chat, which was about, can the level 2 skills units be undertaken at the same time as the level 3 knowledge units? And some can and some can't. And it does say in the qualification manual that the level 2 skills units must be completed before the level 3 specific machining specific units are taken, which is some common sense, that you wouldn't want a learner to be working through the level 2 milling, for example, whilst also at the same time taking the advanced milling on the level 3. So the level 2 skills can be taken at the same time as other units from the supportive group and from the enhanced technologies and the mandatory. So there's enough units within there to form a program that works. Yeah, I think that was it. Rob, sorry for
no,
what I was going to say. Thanks.
Let's just have a look. So maybe a question, Cameron, maybe for you. So where do you see the multiple choice test questions coming from, and who will set them? Okay,
so I'm assuming we mean the multiple choice for the endpoint assessment. Yes. So they would be developed firstly, we'd develop a setting specification based on the knowledge, skills, or the relevant knowledge and skills that have been identified to be assessed by that method. Would develop a setting specification, and then from that setting specification would develop a number of banks of questions that we would then use. So it's crucial. I suppose it's crucial to refer to that setting specification in preparation for learners when they are approaching the gateway, if not before. So the earlier you can register onto the machining EPA, then the better, because you'll get access to the guidance documents which will contain that setting specification. To be honest with you, we are working now on the setting specification, but we're not there with the documentation. We don't have a live date yet for that EPA documentation to be ready, but that's what centres would need to refer to.
Thank you. Let's have a look. There's a question in about the mandated qualifications, that the other qualifications available. Yes, that is correct. I did refer to that on the first couple of slides, but we're here today to talk about EAL's qualification. These other awarding organisations qualifications, which is on the apprenticeship standard, but that's correct. So yeah, but we're here to talk about EAL's qualification today. Couple of questions regarding digital learning resources. When will they be available? I think, as mentioned, it's going to be a phased approach. We will be starting on the mandated units first of all, and as soon as they're available, we will be releasing those. But we're very much at the beginning of that journey, so we anticipate the phased approach will last probably around about 12 months. So, you know, there's a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of effort required to make the resources that we are going to be making for these units. And again, you know, that is going to take time, and we will be phasing that in. Once units become available, they will be uploaded, and then they will be available to use. But it's going to take a little bit of time. But again, as I said, they will be there. It will be available. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get those to you. We'll be starting on the mandated ones and then moving on to the optional units moving forward. Jason, I don't know if you can see any more questions in there. There's quite a few. We're just trying to pick out. We will be running another session which is going to be dedicated around EPA. So there's quite a lot of questions around the assessment modes and models, etc. This is just a briefing on this session. We will be going into more detail moving forward on the actual EPA itself. So just to make everyone aware of that. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for coming to the event. I hope you've got an awful lot from the event. And I think key thing to take away from the event is we are the only EPA in machining at this moment in time. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.